Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Meso Tarek and your continuing series on the MiSTer FPGA DE10 Nano project. More importantly this evening, the Nintendo 64 Core, because it is getting better every single day, and a lot of you have been asking for a new updated setup guide, so that's what we're going to be doing today, getting you guys playing Nintendo 64 on MiSTer FPGA so that you can install all the new cores and enjoy stuff like this. Seeing F0X run perfectly in FPGA is nothing short of a miracle. Robert or FPGAZumSpass has done an incredible job with this core, and the changes are coming fast and furious. I'm going to show you guys how to set it up today and how to keep it updated in the future so you can be on the most recent core. Now you do need to go over to the MiSTer FPGA Discord, and I will leave a link in the description below, and under test builds is where Robert puts all of the new cores. They will be dated as of the recording of this video. The newest core is on October 18th, so just make sure you pick the newest core so you have the newest features. If you just click down here on the file, you're going to see a little download icon. Just go ahead and hit that. That's how you're going to pull the core, because currently this is still not in update all, and I recommend manual installation. It just works for me. But if you do want each new core to come down with update all, if you go under the pins on the Nintendo 64 channel, you can add this little bit of script to the downloader.ini file on your MiSTer. That way it will pull at the same time. Now I like leaving all the cores as this so I can go back and test. Manual installation is what I like to teach, but if you do want an update all, just copy that over to your INI, and if you know how to copy things to your INI, you probably don't need this guide in the first place. This will also pull down the Nintendo 64 database text file that you need, but we'll get to that in just a moment. Do be aware that the games that you want to play, like Super Mario 64, Perfect Dark, or Banjo Tooie, are going to require patches, and the information on these is in the MiSTer Discord. Super Mario 64 will not play without that patch, so be aware. Now, Vampire here has an FAQ on his website as well. I don't care what people say about him, I think he's alright. And he has a testing guide here showing all the compatibility. We're at about 85% right now, and it'll also give you all the information on what is supported, including the different game formats that you dumped from your original hardware. It's also going to show you what's not supported yet, so before you ask, these games do not work because TLB support has not been added to the core as of the recording of this video. It's a virtual memory paging system that allows them to basically move around RAM addresses. Some developers use these, but not a lot of games use them, therefore the list is going to be relatively small. But if you're wondering why something like Paper Mario's not going to work, it's TLB, or something like Castlevania 64 not booting on the current core, that's because it does use TLB as well. And of course I know all of you are going to try GoldenEye, probably first or second. That is also a TLB game, and we need to wait for that to be in the core. Short of that, you do need to get the BIOS file dumped from your original hardware, and you need to rename it to boot.rom, which I will go over in just a moment. And there's some SH1 checksum hashes there so you can confirm your file matches what you need, because without that PIF file, the Nintendo 64 Core is not going to work. And again, there's that script a second time in case you want to copy and paste it to your downloader INI file so it downloads the core automatically. I still prefer manual installation, but that is just me. You can do whatever you like. But as we move around a little bit more, you're going to see that there is this database file that you can download manually. You just right click it and save as, and it's not going to come down with the proper name. Be aware that this is capitalized. It's got to be a capital N, not lowercase n, n64-database.txt. Windows will sometimes save this file with a lowercase n even though you told it to save it with an uppercase n, so sometimes you do need to address that in your files itself. You'll see here that no matter what I told that save link as to do, it decided to be a lowercase n, so just go ahead and rename your file manually to that uppercase n so that the core will actually read it. Lowercase n is just not going to work. But now we have our boot.rom file, our Nintendo 64 database file, and the current core. We'll start with the core first for manual installation. Copy it, go into your MiSTer micro SD card, and go into consoles. From here, all you do is copy the newest core file into the list. You'll see I already have it, but I will still hit copy and then paste so you can see the process. I'm just going to hit skip this file because I already have it, but just move that newest core file into the underscore consoles folder, and you will have the core installed. Now we need to move boot.rom and the N64 database text file over into our games folder. If this is the first time you're doing Nintendo 64, you need to create a folder called N64. You will see it right here. It's all uppercase as far as the end is concerned. So if you do not have this folder, just go ahead and create it, and then copy in your boot.rom file as well as your Nintendo 64 database file. That PIF-ROM is not going to be called boot.rom by default, so when you get it, make sure you rename it. From there, just pop that microSD card back into your MiSTer and go ahead and launch it. If you did add that ini file to the end of downloader.ini, that little bit of text, you can run update all or downloader and it will pull the current core for you. But again, I just really prefer the manual installation. Of course, like every other console core, it's going to be under consoles, and just make sure you have the newest date so you're playing on the newest core. You can't get this confused, I've done it more than once. But now that we're into the core, the first thing you want to make sure is autosave is selected as on. This is going to save most of your games, and you can set the amount of gamepads you have depending on what game you want. Now, as far as saving is concerned, some games saved automatically with autosave on, some games save to a controller pack, so you can set CPAC on there if that is how the game saves. You just need to Google that to see what it uses. But the main reason we have autosave on is for a lot of games, it's going to save to the cartridge in and of itself. In Super Mario 64 here, we've gotten a star, and the game is going to ask us if we want to save our save file. That is not going to automatically save it to the files within MiSTer. If autosave is on and we open up the on-screen display, you're going to see saving now. So if we go down to reset and reset the entire system, or at least virtually because this isn't FPGA, you're going to see that once the game reloads and we get past the Super Mario 64 screen, we're going to have gone from having 5 stars to 6 stars here. If autosave is not on, you need to manually do it. Autosave should always be on, trust me. It takes 2 seconds to toggle, and it's going to save you a lot of lost progress because you did it. Now, moving on to other options within here, you can swap the analog pad over to D-pad so that it will invert your controls as far as what you're using. You also have dual controllers for the games that support them, and you can set which ones those are, and then you can swap the analog sticks on controllers as well. Now, as far as analog controls are concerned, every single controller is going to do something slightly different, but there is a new unstable MiSTer main as of me doing this voiceover. Perhaps it's been added to main, which will give you some better control on certain controllers. Currently, I'm using the MiSTer Add-ons Reflex Adapt with original controller adapters, and it's been working absolutely spectacular for me, but depending on what controller you have, if you feel a little something weird in the actual controls, that's why. And don't forget, you always need to define your buttons or else nothing's going to work whatsoever. But now let's actually get into a game and just play around with some of the other visual settings, because there's a ton of them. I'm just going to pick Super Mario 64 because it's the one that everyone's super familiar with. But again, remember, if you haven't played this core yet, you're going to leave a comment down below saying, why won't Super Mario 64 load? That is because we need the no face IPS patch to remove one check on TLB before the game actually loads in. But if you have that patch and you've done everything so far, we're going to be into Super Mario 64, and pretty much every game that can run on the system is going to run, so long as you have that boot file as well as the Nintendo 64 database. But I want to talk about all the different diverse visual features we have, because there's a ton of them, and I will explain them one at a time so you can understand what they articulate in any particular game. Let's just get a good little look at a camera scene here, and we'll pop back into the on-screen display. Right off the top, you have texture filtering. Original means it is adhering to what the Nintendo 64 would do. Off means it's going to be off. And you will immediately see, if we turn texture filtering off, just how big the pixels get on the background. I actually kind of love this look. It is very charming and intriguing, but by default, if it says original, that's what the real hardware would do. If we go down one more, we're going to have dithering, and you're going to see that's going to slightly lighten and darken the image, as well as makes the texture image banding go away in the background. This is another one. It's a big change from toggle to toggle. You get to decide what works for you. And do be aware that in some games, some of these toggles aren't really going to do much whatsoever. Bilinear filtering is a very small toggle, and there is no gamma feature on Super Mario 64, so it will do nothing. De-dither, you're going to see that texture coming up or down on the screen. Pretty easy to see, but YouTube compression might kill it a little bit. And anti-aliasing is going to do exactly that. Anti-aliasing, you'll see in the line between the wall and the floor, there's going to be a little bit of difference between those two options, so I turn it on or off. But again, some of these are very hard to spot. As far as divot and noise dither right here is concerned, you're not going to see it whatsoever. But play around with those different settings in different games. You're going to get a lot of fun results depending on what you're looking at. Now, if you go down here, you're also going to see that there's an aspect ratio toggle. Some games natively support 16:9, and some games have 16:9 patches. So you can play widescreen on the Nintendo 64, and you're going to use some of those aspect ratio toggles to deal with that. And it is so much fun to see this running in widescreen as well. well, and there are a bunch of different fan games. Some of these will require you to add a manual entry to the Nintendo 64 database file, but honestly, if you're going through fan games, you probably already know how to do that, so if you have any issues, leave me a comment down below and I will walk you through that, but I didn't want to spend 2 minutes going over that when I know maybe only 10 of you are actually going to be doing this. But if you follow all the directions in this video, you're going to be playing Nintendo 64 on MiSTer FPGA, and that's absolutely spectacular. I know a lot of you have not yet tried this core, you wait for it to be an update all, but I'm telling you right now, this core is so incredible and there's so many games that you can play and a good amount that you can actually 100% complete. You should not be waiting for this to go into update all, so hopefully a setup guide will get more of you playing Nintendo 64 on MiSTer FPGA, because FPGAZumSpass has done an incredible job to this point and there's still improvements to come. Short of that, go set this up, play Nintendo 64, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye!